I think we come together seeking to live in partnership with our dogs, and our dogs show us how to do this like so brilliantly. I mean, we know that it doesn't feel right to follow the old model of obedience, training our dogs and, training our dogs to be compliant. No matter how positively we do that, we know in our hearts, we know in our bones, we know in our soft and strong women's flesh that it's not our way. We know that we can nurture and support our dogs to blossom, guiding them to be responsible, to be respected members of our family and respected members of our communities, members of the planet Earth, in their own brilliant way as dogs. Hi, I'm Kathy Kowalik, and I believe that our dogs connect us to the heart and soul of what really matters in life. So hang out, and we'll take a deep dive into the human-dog connection and explore strategies that will inspire you to create legendary, enlightened partnership with your dog. This is the Enlightened by Dogs podcast. Well, hello, Kathy Kowalik here. And, it's that time of year as we turn our cycle, as our cycle turns, I should say, into the new year. I do, and maybe you do too. I tend to get reflective of, life and the meaning of life and my purpose in life, and sort of it's a natural time, and I certainly set aside time and space to do this, but it's a time of getting more in touch with our heart and our big whys and why we do what we do and all the things, right? And so I hope you do that as well. And so all that to say that I've been thinking about what brings us together, like why we are centering living in partnership and having the experience of dancing hearts as we learn alongside of our dogs. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, we're dog moms, but underneath that, we're so much more. We're part of a sisterhood that loves each other, loves the planet, loves people, loves animals, loves nature, and of course, loves our dogs. And, yes, we're survivors, but we're so much more than that. We refuse to be victims, and so we thrive. We're alive with possibility. Because it's the new year and because it's a time when I naturally reflect on my big whys and like how that will be renewed and recreated in the new year. I'm riffing today, and I just feel like it's a time to share this with you. And so my dream is to, do my part to empower women, dog moms in particular, to live a full and rich life, a happy life with what brings us together, which is our dogs. We're nurturers, and yet we're strong. We're strong, and yet we're vulnerable. We're brave, even when we're afraid. We rescue, but we're not rescuers. We're survivors, but we are not victims. Our power, our empowerment doesn't come because we place ourselves above others, like other women, other humans, other species, above our dogs. In our hearts, we know that our empowerment comes from our strength, from our vulnerability, and from our empathetic nature. And I think we come together seeking to live in partnership with our dogs, and our dogs show us how to do this like so brilliantly. I mean, we know that it doesn't feel right to follow the old model of obedience, training our dogs and, training our dogs to be compliant. No matter how positively we do that, we know in our hearts, we know in our bones, we know in our soft and strong women's flesh that it's not our way. We know that we can nurture and support our dogs to blossom, guiding them to be responsible, to be respected members of our family and respected members of our communities, members of the planet Earth, in their own brilliant way as dogs. We know that we are perfect and our dogs are perfect, just as a seed is perfectly capable of sprouting, blossoming, and living into its full potential with nurturing and with all of the time and space that it needs, right? That thing of right timing. And we know this in our heart of hearts. We know this thing called universal love. We are universal love. We embody universal love. Now, trust me, I know that sometimes we are acting out from our old stories, from cultural conditioning, societal conditioning, peer pressure, from stories so old that we women carry thousands of years of generational pain as women that I think is now ready to be healed. I think the time is ripe for our healing as women. And yet we know as women what it feels like to be afraid to be ourselves, like to not be able to be authentic. We know what it feels like to be suppressed, to be coerced. We know what it feels like to feel like we're forced into being compliant just to get rewarded with what we need to survive, to feel safe, to do what we must, to belong. And we don't want to do that to our dogs. Now, we might not think those thoughts or have those exact words in our head because, not many speak about this, right? But when we really think about it, we know it in our bones, and we know that there's a different way. We know that there's a way to cooperatively live with our dogs as a family group successfully, where we all thrive and where we can all be safe and happy. I mean, we just know this in our heart of hearts. And I was thinking as I was going through my meditations and contemplations and, thinking about the year ahead and what I'm renewing and recreating, I was reminded from a couple months ago. I was listening to an Unlocking Us podcast episode with Brene Brown on the power of women. And she was interviewing Elizabeth Lesser, who is the co-founder of the Omega Institute, which is, an amazing, retreat and learning experience center. She's also the author of several books, including her newest book, which is called Cassandra Speaks, which, by the way, is on my to read list, and I can't wait. So you might want to put that on yours, or at least look into it. Anyway, one of the pieces that I found interesting about the discussion that they were having was how we think of power and how we are culturally conditioned to define power. And this conditioning is one of the reasons that many of us women are uncomfortable with that word, power, because the traditional definition that we've been, raised up with is just not something that we know to be true when we really listen to our hearts and to our intuition. We tend to reject the word power, and yet, it's interesting. One of the things that Brene shared on that podcast was that during her research, over and over again, women said that their experiences of feeling powerless, so their life experiences of powerlessness, were the most injurious and the most dangerous things in their life. And yet, we shrink away from power, right? Because the kind of power that our world seems to be offering up it just doesn't align with us, right? And so the old way is power over others. And this is what we've been trained and conditioned to believe that power means. And power over is exactly where dog training and obedience training comes from. Think about it. If you have any training, any certification, or have done any research and learning around behavior modification, you'll clearly see it everywhere. And even positive training is based on power over. It's around the idea of, I have something you want, and I'll provide the opportunity for you to work for it, right? That's power over. And that's why most women don't want power, not in that way. And that's why dog training as we know it is no longer working as it used to, because we're coming into a new age. We are more brave as women to step into this place of recognizing and feeling strong and brave enough to say, this isn't working. This doesn't work for me. And so a lot of, this is all sort of coming to a head for us, right? It's really fascinating. And so the time is right. And we can step into what power truly is, the real definition of power. And our new possibility for defining power comes from a more feminine, a more balanced approach, as spoken by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, power is the ability to achieve purpose and affect change. And that's very much aligned with, my many years of experience and study in the ways of the world and the ways of, of folks that have traditionally been living in partnership with Mother Earth and with all of the beings that we share Mother Earth with, including my shamanic teachers, which I, continue to study with. And, I've been fortunate enough to have experienced the real definition of power as being power with. And when we think about the history of power, it becomes pretty clear, from the ancient, from the ancient writings, to the United States founding fathers, and certainly into current events. The history of power is that power is associated with war, domination, oppression, suppression, enslavement, violence. Power over. And a contemporary researcher from UCLA, a woman named Shelley Taylor, discovered through her research that women, humans, and female mammals, such as monkeys and rats, have a completely different way of using their power. They create a sense of belonging, and instead of lashing out, fighting, or trying to dominate, power over, women leaders of not only human but other species tend to the least powerful in the group, such as children and elderly. So they tend, right? So they don't dominate. They tend to the least powerful in their group. And they befriend, creating a strong sense of safety and belonging. And Miss Taylor coined the phrase, tend and befriend. So, old story, power over, authoritarian, competitive, withhold praise, affection, resources. It's based on a strong, weak, strong/weak hierarchical model versus our new possible story, our new story, the real story, the true story, our truth. Collaborative, connecting, empathy, communication, generous with praise and unconditional love, encouragement, empathy. A partnership model. And like Brene writes in her book, Braving the Wilderness, have a strong back, stay committed to our values and to leading others with love and empathy. Have a soft front, stay soft and open to others, and follow your wild and amazing heart. That's our new story. And so here we are. We're here together. You're listening to this because you felt the vibe and you responded to the energetic pull in your heart, just like it pulled me, like sometimes metaphorically kicking and screaming inside my own head to share my life experiences and my learning and the wisdom I've gained from those experiences. I mean, like the thoughts I've had, like, who am I to teach others? Who am I to be a role model? Like, I'm so far from having it figured out as a human. I'm flawed. I make mistakes. I get angry. I have meltdowns. I have issues. I have baggage. I have things. Like we all do. And so, back to the beginning. To close the loop that I started here today, I answered that call, and that call was my vision of dancing hearts. And the delight of that phrase, dancing hearts, I just love it so much. And isn't that why we're here? That's why I'm here, and I think that's why you're here. And what I know is that you can have that and I can have that. And, you and I and you and your dogs and you and your families, we can all have dancing hearts. We can all feel safe and happy. We can have dogs that are calm and happy and thriving and that love to listen and that are not frantic or struggling with not knowing how to behave. Not struggling with not feeling like they belong and not feeling, disrespected or that they don't have agency, right? I mean, that not knowing is what causes our dogs to act out, to be unruly, to not behave well, to not know how to listen, to not be responsive to the current environment, to not be able to co-regulate, to not be able to make valid assessments of what is needed in the moment. Just like us, we're the same, right? As a social mammal, we are the same when we don't know as well. And we've taken that away from our dogs because of that old model, the old stories. But things change, right? Things can change. Our dogs change when we change our thinking, and when we step into our power, real power, to be who we are, women, compassionate, empowered, vulnerable, strong, brave, courageous. When we are who we are, and we model that for our dogs through our way of living, through the way we think, through the way we take responsibility for our thoughts and our emotions and our choices and our actions. And even when we mess up, even when we do or say things that are not us, that are not coming from a place of empowerment, we can have a good cry. We can get angry. We can cuss. We can have a meltdown. We could do all the things. And then we can pick ourselves up. We could take a deep breath. We can come back to our center, and we can step into our power, into our authenticity. We can become the badass, strong, soft, wholehearted human that we are meant to be. So that's it. That's what I have for today. I hope this is helpful for you. It felt like it had to come out of me. And so here it is. I love to hear from you and hear your thoughts. Leave a comment. And so I'll see you next week. And in the new year, we'll be getting deeper into the new year, and yay! So do your thing and step into your power. And in the meantime, just imagine what life will be like when you and your dog can finally understand one another. You are amazing. Bye-bye for now. Thanks so much for listening. And hey, if you would like to work with me so that I can help you discover the missing pieces you need so that you and your dog can finally be happy and enjoy life together, then head on over to dancingheartsdogacademy.com and request your invitation to join us in the Brilliant Partners Academy when the doors open for the next enrollment. See you next time, and remember, a brilliant partnership with your dog makes your whole life brilliant.